1, 2, 3, 4.
This is DJ Bonebreak. Yep, his real name. I'm jealous. Although DJ is a classically trained multi-instrumentalist, including vibraphone, marimba, and timpani, he's best known for being the drummer for LA punk rock gods X. He's also played in bands like The Eyes with Charlotte Caffey of the Go-Go's, The Flesh Eaters, The Knitters, The Germs, Devil's Brigade, and Antichrist. X featured DJ on the kit, John Doe on lead vocals and bass, Exene Cervenka on vocals, and Billy Zoom on guitar. Why they weren't inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame decades ago is laughable. The uniqueness of DJ's high-speed tempos and memorable fills, melting with Billy's dark chord progressions and rockabilly leads, on top of John and Exene's patented monotone yet countrified harmonies, X was one of the most influential and original bands in rock and roll history. I first heard X when their debut album Los Angeles came out. The title track was in full rotation on K-Rock 106.7 in LA, and I became obsessed with this song. With its jagged off-time intro, the spooky harmonies, the blazing tempo, and fist-pumping accents, I became a fan right away, and their name was immediately carved into my school notebook. Other tracks on the record like Johnny Hit and Run Pauline and Doors cover Soul Kitchen rounded out a groundbreaking debut and their own recognizable sound. Their first 4 records, including Los Angeles, Wild Gift, Under the Big Black Sun, and More Fun in the New World, were all produced by Doors keyboard player Ray Manzarek. This was right around when I started teaching myself the drums, and Wild Gift's White Girl was in heavy rotation in my headphones. DJ's grooves were grounded in what I call late 50s, early 60s surf beat, a high-speed, dancey, one-kick, two-snare beat made popular by the Beach Boys, the Beatles, Jan and Dean, the Safaris, the Ventures, Buddy Holly, Eddie Cochran, Jerry Lee Lewis, and so on. DJ also mixed in classic big band influences in many of his drum patterns. Intertwined throughout his playing were other rhythmic 60s jazz, rock influences like Ginger Baker, Mitch Mitchell, and John Densmore. Their third record was the most crucial for me as a drummer. Under the Big Black Sun, to me, sounded more produced, with more depth and more expanded influences. The syncopated rhythm between the guitar and drums on songs like Hungry Wolf and Blue Spark provided a haunting atmosphere while still maintaining the punk rock acceleration throughout. Their fourth album, More Fun in the New World, provided new elements of funk and folk, with songs like True Love Part 2 and I Must Not Think Bad Thoughts. Shortly after, they released Breathless, a fun cover of an Otis Blackwell song used for the Richard Gere feature film of the same name, and was also a favorite of mine, increasing my speed and endurance. I had to go out and buy this vinyl single right away to practice to it. In between More Fun in the New World and Ain't Love Grand, they released a cover of the Trogs tune Wild Thing. Later down the line, this song exploded after being featured in the movie Major League with Charlie Sheen, and soon became a standard in actual games in Major League stadiums around the world. Billy Zoom departed around the recording of the next full-length, Ain't Love Grand. Zoom was initially replaced by Dave Alvin of the Blasters. This record featured the rockin' single, Burnin' House of Love. The next album, See How We Are, highlighted a much more roots rock feel. including the single 4th of July. Even though Billy left the band and eventually came back, there was much more recording, many tours, reunions, side projects, and members in and out. My focus isn't on the history of X. It's on DJ's influence on me as a self-taught drummer, and my inspiration and interview is wrapped around the first 3 records with the original lineup. When not concerned with X activities, DJ keeps himself very busy and has his hand in many bands these days, including his passion, playing vibes in the Bonebreak Syncopators. The Syncopators play jazz standards in a swing and western swing style. This year, X is celebrating their 40th anniversary, and they released a new record called Alphabet Land. This album is actually very impressive, with plenty of old X energy and cleverly crafted hooks. You can find it on their Bandcamp or their label, Fat Possum. DJ was cool enough to make some time for me. Just a heads up, due to technical difficulties, I don't show up until around 4 minutes in. Sorry about that. We begin talking about the new album right here. I have an idea about your new record. You need to start a campaign with the Goodbye Year. You've probably been through this already.
Well, I haven't been, but yeah, it's a
killer song. I love those 2 songs back to back. The De Berge's Back and Goodbye Year are probably my 2 favorites off the new record.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, Goodbye Year, Goodbye was the last song written. It was written last year. You know, it was about 2019.
Yeah.
Who would know it would actually apply more to 2020? You know, if you thought 2019 was bad, well, welcome to the future. Here we are. Yeah.
Congratulations on the new record. I mean, I wish things weren't happening the way they were, because it's full of so many cool songs. The singing is good. You know, the original lineup is back, and the tempos are up. It's really exciting.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I'm excited about it. I mean, it's unfortunate that we couldn't tour on it. I mean, that's what most bands want to do, but I guess we're in a different era, and I feel lucky that we were able to release it. You know, I mean, we weren't sure for a while. It was supposed to come out in August, and we had tours set for May, June, and then, you know, in the fall. And we decided we'll release it in April. We just put it out there and see what happens. And the response was tremendous. People were really happy to hear it. So, I mean, you know, yeah, the world's never exactly what you want it to be, but I feel lucky that we were able to do that.
Right off the top, I just want to say, everyone go buy it. It's they have a Bandcamp. X has a Bandcamp. You can find them there. And then Fat Possum, right off their website, you can buy it as well too. Is that right? Cool. So the whole purpose of the thing is, you know, I play up here in a bunch of Seattle band stuff, and Roger Fisher Hart and Vendetta Red and a bunch of other stuff. And last year I had an auto accident coming back from a show where they just the roads. We just had a snowstorm and all the roads were iced over, and I got launched from my van and ended up having spine surgery and broken ribs, and they had to sew this left ear back on. And you know, I was kind of like, I love playing drums. I've been touring for a long time, you being one of my biggest influences, and I just thought everything was over, you know. And then, but I've worked my way back. I'm about 75%. I'm able to play and teach and play out and stuff like that. But what I've done is, like, to pull me out of the self-pity thing is, like, what if I reach out to my first influences and just had them, like, share some stories and inspire people, because everything's bad news these days. So in like 4 out of my 5 drum heroes, like, right off the bat said, yeah, I'll come on. It's like, oh God, now I'm in too deep. This is pretty cool. Martin Chambers and Dave from Bow Wow and Chris Franz, and it's just like, this is all K-Rock. So I grew up on the beach in SoCal. And so I was a K-Rock guy, and, you know, Los Angeles came out, and that's when I, you know, had to write it on my notebook in school, and then Wild Gift. And that's when I just started playing drums, and I was like, what I took from you, and I know you're a complex musician and you're well-trained. I'm just a self-taught guy in a suburb of Orange County, you know, listening to X and Generation X and Stray Cats and Oingo Boingo and everything K-Rock had to feed me. Just to connect with that, I just wanted to reach out and say thank you, first of all, for being such a an amazing musician. But I was curious, just not as far as vibes, but on the kit, what were the first records that you started getting obsessed over that made you be a better drum kit drummer?
Well, I mean, I like most people, I got into drums before I started playing drums. Probably for me it was the British invasion. At my age, I'm almost 65, so it was. I heard things on the radio. Actually, I heard things on the radio before the Beatles, but the Beatles were a big influence, and the Stones and bands like that. But at the time they played Motown. That got into my system. There were in LA it was the AM radio stations, KFWB, KRLA, KHJ. At the time those were the radio stations that played the pop music, and so yes, I'd say bands like that, and as I think about the time I started playing drums, it was bands like Jimi Hendrix, and Cream, and the bands like that. And I got a little bit of the influence from my neighbor who was older, and he was playing Elvis Presley. But that wasn't really my thing at the time. I got into it later. But so it was all of that. So I would say probably playing on a frisbee to Ringo's drumming. Like
tennis racket. Yeah, I remember those times.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Playing on a basketball, and then I mean, I don't know if it's and then a typical thing, we had an elementary school orchestra. I tried to get into that, and I said I wanted to play drums. They said, no, we have too many drummers. You have to play trombone. And I said, no, I don't want to do that. So it wasn't until junior high I started playing in the orchestras and the bands, and I was I started taking lessons about 12. Started was in a marching band, and so but it was it kind of went off from there. But really the early stuff was 60s rock.
So how far did you take the reading part of it, say the theory, before you started touring in a punk rock band for most of your career? Did I was talking with a couple drummers who most of the drummers I've talked to are self-taught, but there are a few who are like, reading saved my life at this one particular gig. Is there a moment where like you went into a studio, because you do a lot of session work, where it's like you're required to like, here's the chart, and you're like, oh yeah, I can do this?
Oh, it's funny. I started doing that. I did it just the opposite. In fact, I remember doing some sessions, where a lot of times I could read better than the producer who was writing the stuff. I would correct stuff, because I mean, okay. My older brother just retired from the LA Philharmonic to like. He was a music librarian there for 30 some years. So, something about, when I started playing, it's kind of just a weird thing, but it was a Buddhist marching band at the time. My older brother, I was 12, or 11 or 12. My older brother was Nichiren Shoshu Buddhism, and it was a thing at the time. It was 1967, so yeah. Forgive me, but I joined, and they had a marching band. They said, hey, you want to play drums or saxophone? It's either trombone or drums, but I said drums, and they started teaching me, and they had teachers there, and so I went through that. There was a marching band, and then they had a big band. So by the time I was about 14 or 15, they just threw me into the big band, and I was reading charts. I was, we were playing, bigger concerts, backing up singers, and we would have charts about, 7 pages long. So I was used to reading, big band charts. And then I went through the school system, played high school, junior high school. And, I was in community orchestras, so I was like it's so funny because at the same time I was playing in what they used to call a top 40 band, in the neighborhood. It was, you played Led Zeppelin and, whatever, David Bowie's songs. That was called top 40, but I was playing in the Cal Arts Youth Orchestra on the weekends when I was about 15, which was out in Valencia when there was nothing out there. And it was one of the best orchestras in the city. Somehow I got into that, and I was in the Valley Youth Orchestra. We was, a lot of these that kind of orchestra was based at a church with, a violinist who wanted to have an orchestra. And so I did all that. In fact, I was a really good reader, and I went through all the drum books and, rudiments and I almost became a classical musician, but I just kind of, it's a long story. I just, decided to, I didn't want to go to college. I went to a junior college, and
I didn't either.
I just fucked around, pardon my French, but so I could have gone either way. I just didn't, and I started taking mallet lessons from this guy, Earl Hatch, who was the local teacher of marimba when I was in high school. But then after I was doing pretty well, but I was overwhelmed after about a little over a year. I just went, I can't, I don't have the discipline or the time to play mallets and drums. And later I picked them, 20 years later, I started taking lessons again. So anyway, that's kind of my history. And then later as my career progressed, I took lessons from different players, mallet players and classical teachers, just to improve my technique. So I actually found that I rarely used the reading unless someone hired me for, I would do a, college orchestra choir thing, and someone would hire me and say, hey, you know how to do this. I put on a tuxedo and, anyway, I could go on and on, but it's so funny. I used to play in a community orchestra. I got back into it in 1988, and there'd always be one person who would recognize me. I'd be in the tuxedo and have the triangle or something. They would go at the intermission and say, aren't you DJ Bonebreak? And yeah, I am, this guy's straight laced guy with a, bow tie and, counting measures. So, I do that for fun. I really like that, but it wasn't meant to be. I wasn't that good to be a professional, but,
Still, you really enjoy it.
It's really, I mean, not everyone's into classical music, but when you sit and listen to it over and over, when you're in an orchestra and you start, you listen to the Brahms Fourth Symphony for 6 weeks, and it just gets into your soul, and as you hear more, you really like it, and I mean, I think I was destined for action. I think I had the hyperactive personality, so I had to play punk rock.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. There was another band back in the early days. Did a lot of live, did a lot of extra Celeste or more musical percussive stuff. Oingo Boingo, like when you first started hearing that stuff, you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
And I mean, the reason I bring that up is just a little bit of prep for you. I started watching that movie Erg, A Music War back, and you guys had a great song in that. And then there's Oingo Boingo. It's like, there's so much going on stage right now. You could just see, yes, of course this will be The Simpsons, in the future. Yeah. Of course this will be Elvis movie. This, and they're all playing, and you're like, yeah. I mean, I bet you could jump into that band pretty easy. Like, I'll be on the other vibes. And
oh, I love that. They would have the vibes and the African marimbas. They'd all wear them over their shoulders and play these things in unison, and they were always fantastic. And we used to play shows together. Yeah, and I actually saw them when they were the Mystic Knights of the Oingo Boingo, in the before they were
on the Gong Show, I think, when they were called that.
It was insane. I saw them opening for Captain Beefheart. I think it was at USC, and well, Captain Beefheart was great, but they opened, and I remember they started their show, they came down the aisles. It was a theater they had I guess either monkey masks or gorilla masks playing drums, and they would go onto the stage, it became one vignette after another. They would close the curtain, it would come back, and they would do something else, like a little jazz thing, and then they would close the curtain, and there'd be something else.
Like vaudeville. Just throw some
Vaudeville. It's
on
like
the stage.
vaudeville. That's a good way to put it. And that was one of the best shows I ever saw because, and the band that opened for them was a one-man band who he was playing, I can't even
back, and
he had the whole thing. I think he was playing a piano with he might have had extra hands. I don't know how he did it, but it was the most insane show I ever saw. So yeah, Oingo Boingo was. And they're still good, with even without Danny, they play yearly shows, and yeah.
It doesn't matter what concert you jump around to, like on YouTube, when you watch their live stuff, outdoor, amphitheater, US Festival or whatever, or indoor, it's like, it's very consistent. They're just like really solid musicians, and that comes time. Very sharp.
Yeah, it's great, man. And yeah, no doubt about that.
Between you and I'm just going to go back to K-Rock a little bit. You and like Rockabilly from the Stray Cats and Polecat Blasters, and I get punk from Generation X and the Ramones, even Go-Go's and stuff like that. And then more avant-garde stuff, Oingo Boingo, Walla Voodoo. I'm getting all this stuff from K-Rock, and that's when I started loving the drums and trying to figure the stuff out. And then when your third record hits, that's when I was like, this band is actually a lot deeper than I thought. Even though I was really young, I was like, the syncopation with the writing between the guitar and the drums. I'm just wondering about your process for stuff like Blue Spark and Hungry Wolf, how that came into like a rehearsal room and like how you formed those songs.
Yeah, man, it's hard to remember exactly. I remember with Hungry Wolf, John had a bass line. The way it would usually work is John and Exene would write lyrics together. Trade lyrics and melodies, and then when we had a rehearsal, John would come in. He would play chords on the bass. He has a unique style. He plays, all four notes sometimes. Not always, but he'll and he would play them, and Billy would interpret the chords. Goes that minor or major, and I remember the rhythm. I would always try to find something that was a little different if I could, and if I couldn't, I wouldn't force it. So I took that rhythm, and you were talking about early influences. There was an influence. Gene Krupa was an influence because my parents had we bought a stereo system, and I think I don't know if the 3 or 4 records came with it, but one was Gene Krupa. A Gene Krupa, a Benny Goodman record with Gene Krupa, and had Sing 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 on it.
Yeah.
And it just kind of got into my system. So and I listened to some big band after that. But so I just somehow said, let me see what would happen if I played it on the floor tom. Yeah. And then I had the B section. It's a weird little thing on the toms and snare, but and
recognizable. You could like go into a guitar setter and do that on a floor tom. 10 people trying to I know what that is.
Yeah, it's it's fun to play too. So yeah, you just go by the rhythm, and Blue Spark, same thing. It has a da 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 da. And I could have played it without the toms, or without playing the straight melody, playing it on the snare. But like I said, I would try to, do something a little bit different, and if it worked, great. So yeah, I don't know, just a process. We would spend a lot of time, and we wouldn't push it too hard. We would work slowly. Like, we wouldn't go, we have to make this work today. We would try it out, and then it might sound bad, and then we'd try the next day or next week, and eventually it would just kind of come together. If someone had come to our rehearsals, they would go, this is the worst band in the world. They just sound terrible. Because we would just kind of try all the worst sounding things, just kind of, trial and error, and just kind of loose. It was very, I don't know. I wouldn't say unstructured, but we just kind of let it morph very slowly, let's say.
Do you have good memories about recording that record? I'm probably just crazy, and maybe I was went into a trance for the Hungry Wolf video, but that record seems to have a different mood to it, a little darker vibe. Besides more complexity from just punk rock, it's like now we're getting into different kind of genres under the X sound? Or did it seem like recording any other record that you've done?
Well, I mean, I can actually see the studio when we recorded that song because, well, first let me say, the record is darker, I think, because it was a lot of it was about, and it was after Exene's sister had died. She died in a horrible auto accident on the way to the Whiskey A Go Go when we were playing there. We were
on the way to the show.
On the way to the show, yeah, and so a lot of those songs, like "Come Back to Me" is about Exene's sister, about Muriel. So there is a darkness in that way, and also it was I don't know. Yeah, so that I think that may contribute to it. But I remember doing that song because it seems like we would, the way we worked in the studio was we would come in the morning, and we would work, until we get sounds and work until about dinner time, and then sometimes we wouldn't get it, so we'd take a break, have some dinner, and come back. And this probably as a drummer, or just musicians know this. I mean, I know it was cushy. We could do 2 songs a day, I mean, as some people do a record in a day, but we had 5 days to do basics. But you have dinner, you come back, you're relaxed, you rehearse the song, and you do it in the first take. And so we found that would be the pattern. So then you'd start the next song, and then you would work until the evening, and you go, you'd try really hard, and then you go, oh, let's try it again tomorrow. So you go in first thing in the morning, and you get it in the first or second take. So I remember Hungry Wolf, it was an after dinner take, and they put the mood lights on, and I remember it being dark. And I remember what's his name? There was a critic from New York, a rock critic who was there. It was and it's always frightening when there's someone an outsider who's going to be critical, who was in the studio and
I've heard about A&R guys just hanging out by the floor tom during recording when the money's on the line.
Yeah, well, they weren't there, but yeah. Oh, here's a funny story about the Hungry Wolf. Is was it 1999 or something like that, or 2000? We were opening for Pearl Jam. We did about 5 or 6 shows on the West Coast. They asked us to do that, and I think we were playing Sacramento or something, some big place, and maybe the Arco Center or something, and we were about to play that song, and the floor tom leg of my drum broke, and it just kind of fell over, and we had to play the Hungry Wolf next. And our manager, he was our road manager at the time, he had to go up on stage and grab the floor tom like this, and he said he didn't have earplugs on, and he came to the rescue. Mike came to the rescue, and he's holding the drum like that, and I'm going bop 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 bop, and I can't imagine how hard I was hitting it. You get excited at these big shows that you're not used to playing, and so yeah.
Drums 911.
Pardon me?
Drums 911. Drums 911.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. There's some experiences at festival shows. I've had a kick pedal snap in the middle of a song, and then some dude from one of the other bands just throw me it, in between songs, and yeah, I mean, you've been touring for so long. I think you could probably write a book on like crazy stuff you've had to staple together in the middle of a set.
Well, it's usually the same thing. I don't hit as hard as I used to. I used to, I mean, I'm guilty of maybe trying too hard. And that was the thing. In the studio, I used to try to play too hard. Nowadays, I don't. I think you can get a better sound if you don't. But that was the era. But I always break a pedal at the end of Nausea. Or Nausea. Some people don't know it. It's just everything is just on. It's on every beat. Da 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 da. That's one, and the kick is just on every beat. Yeah. And I always break it on the last, like at there's a last break, either the end or the last break, and and it goes da da da, and I snap the pedal in half like that, and it's happened. I don't know how many times I've broken, even as a couple of years ago, I think I broke a pedal doing that, and it's rare. The pedals these days are pretty strong, but
the Nausea backup pedal has its own case. It's like labeled.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I have a couple of those cases. I put bongos in them or something, and I just put them in the trap case. But yeah,
I wish I'd been in a spot where I've been on a few major label bands, and every band I've been in, that they've always had like a really young A&R guy. So he's always felt the pressure. There's never been like a lot of time. Let's just take our time to record this one song. I used to get bets, like especially this guy from Epic. He was like, if you can do the whole record in the day, I'm going to take you out down to Jones Restaurant, in Hollywood or whatever. Steaks on me, So it'd be like a challenge. It's like I'd stop even thinking about like the quality, and who knows, it might sound like that too. But I was like, let's get it done as fast as possible,
Yeah, but something about things fast. But if you're under the gun, it's hard to do it. If you're self-conscious about it, if you're well rehearsed and you're not self-conscious, it could happen.
Yeah, we weren't writing songs like in the tracking room or anything. We were ready to go, but still, it was just like a challenge. Like song 7, we're 2 hours in. Let's do this. Just drenched in.
Yeah, it's played really fast.
So I'm gonna jump around a little bit, and I won't take up too much of your time. I really love. I saw it a few years ago, but I always go back to the percolator scene.
Yeah.
In the documentary, that's a really cool clip. It's pretty popular on YouTube. Also, was that in your apartment?
Yeah, that was in my apartment in North Hollywood. And and I didn't know what to say. If someone was doing a documentary about you, what would you say? I mean, I was also younger, and I was little. You're on camera. They're actually filming you. You're going, what do I do? So I said, well, I'll come up with something. I'll make up something. But yeah, the actual beat. I wish I could do more of those. It's a polyrhythm. And the reason I came up with that. Must have been around mid 70s or something, but it was before. I remember it was before 77 because I remember rehearsing at the Mask, and it was 78. There was a thing called a trinome before you had computers to do these things. It was a company called Bilotti, and it would play 3 rhythms at once, from 1 to 8. You had a bell sound and 2 clicks, a medium and high click, and you adjust it, and you can play any combination from 1 to 8. So you could play 6, 7, and 8 against each other, and it sounds like it sounds like nothing. So I got it in my head that I'm going to learn how to play 3 at once, and it took me about a year, I think. Where and I would make charts and subdivide it. Go, how do you subdivide 4 into 3, that's easy enough. And then, have 4 into 5 and 3 into 5. And then, and so I learned how to do that rhythm, as close as I think anyone could do it. And so it was, it was a real
Yes gig.
What's it?
And then you got hired for the Yes gig shortly.
Yeah. They said you're too qualified. I mean, there are people, they can do things, like that. But probably any of the Zappa drummers, could do some of that stuff. But I had it in my brain that I could do all these. I could spend 50 years in a monastery, and I could learn all these polyrhythms that no one would ever want to play or understand. But I did it. I did that one thing. So I wish I could do more. One day I'll when I retire, I'll devote my life to these things. But it's fascinating. I find that fascinating.
Yeah, it stretches you as a musician. You might be comfortable in your gig, and now you're a professional, and you have a sound and things like that. But no one expects drummers who might be categorized where you were, that they know how to do that, or they're that schooled, or they even have an interest in polyrhythms and stuff like that. So I was like, that really perked me up, because at the time I was into the 3 Colored King Crimson records in the 80s, and Rush and Yes, and I was kind of breaking out of the punk thing, and I was just like, this guy knows how to do all that stuff, He's just got to.
I was just faking it. I just had one thing, but I do practice.
Yeah.
Because okay, I do practice things that are way, beyond what X does, just because it's interesting. I can't play like those guys. I've heard those great players, and you have to really play that music. You have to be, you don't just fake it.
Yeah.
But I practice those things because it's interesting. As a drummer, if you just practice, a beat in 4/4, just go boom, boom, ba, 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 you'll get bored after 5 minutes, and you won't. You need for one, you need the physical activity. You have to keep in shape, and number two, you want to keep your mind sharp.
Mm-hmm.
And I think all that, So I'll practice things. We all have a problem if you're right-handed with your left hand. Every drummer says that. It's a universal thing. So, I practice playing left hand on a ride cymbal, and I can do it. I'll spend months and months doing rhythms, and my left hand will get stronger, but it never reaches my right hand. But if you give it a chance, it does improve.
Yeah.
In fact, you were talking about physical therapy. Having an accident, you have to, you went through physical therapy. You started, I would guess, you started very slowly, and it was like starting over again, like the simplest things.
Falling out of the hospital bed. Yeah.
Yeah, like so, anyone's in a hospital, the first thing they say, if you've had an operation, they say, okay, you've got to get up and walk around, and it might be you walk 2 steps. The next day you walk 3 steps, and then and then they get you to walk down the hall with and I know it's not exactly the same, but I jokingly call it that, because if you're trying to increase your technique, and it's little steps, and you have to do it every day. So it is like, I guess it's like therapy. You're trying to make your left hand work as well as your right hand. And there's some people can do it because they're really disciplined, or they have the talent, but for most of it, it's you just do it every day. You make a little checklist. Oh, I did it Tuesday, I did it Wednesday, and then you start to improve.
That's funny. I've got a huge grease pencil board in one of my rehearsal rooms, right? Like with goals, of stuff I used to be able to do, and now it's a bit of struggle because of nerve damage. And I put BPMs, like now I could do the heartbeat at 150 BPMs, and it's taking months,
Yeah.
And, I was paralyzed for 2 days before they came up and started doing the pinprick stuff. Mm-hmm. And so that was a year ago, and now I'm like, I'm able to touch a stick,
Oh, that's amazing. So, and so, do you you still do physical therapy, or you do drumming, like you do a little at a time, or
I do everything. So I started off, I couldn't, I was paralyzed for 2 days, and then the doctor comes around and starts doing the pinprick stuff. Yeah, I can feel that. I can't feel that. It's a C6, so it's my hands and feet. As a drummer, that's the
worst night.
So I walk around. It kind of feels like sponges, and on the hands and feet. It's coming back slowly, but I'm able to teach. I've played gigs. It's just getting back to where my ego thought I was, as a single bass drum drummer. I think every drummer has like a secret weapon they can go to, that make people go, wow. I probably had a pretty quick kick drum foot. Mm-hmm. And now I'm just trying to get those small twitches back, and it's my ankles all clogged up. And so I actually going for new images tomorrow on the C6. And so, it's just every day is an adventure. I practice every day. I swim. I live on a lake, so I swim in the lake. I hook myself up to electricity at night, doing all the supplements, salmon oil, and magnesium is like the miracle supplement as far as drummers are concerned that I've found, as far as like cramping and dehydration and stuff like that. So I always suggest that to drummers who haven't heard of that before. Magnesium all the time.
Well, that's interesting because I'm a little stiffer than I used to be. It takes a long time to warm up. My hands, are stiff. So
I was going to ask you about that, the whole theme of the channel. So, you've been at it for a while. Do you remember any injuries that almost took you out in the middle of a tour, or do you ever have a routine leading up to a show, or to prep you for a tour, physical maintenance?
Yeah, well, I would usually. It depends on, I would usually try to get in shape before a tour. I'd practice every day.
Mhm.
And I used to be an avid runner. Now I walk. I walk an hour every day. My wife and I take a walk. I used to run in the mountains and go crazy. So I would actually get in shape, and then I'd go on tour, and depending on the tour, my discipline would alter from year to year, month to month. I've always had quite a bit of discipline, but sometimes you're on the road and you just go, forget it. I'll just, hang out in the dressing room and then go on. But generally I warm up on a pad. You
Mhm.
know, I find that if I do a half an hour or something that, in fact, I'm famous for disappearing. They'll go, where's DJ? Just because I'm trying to, there are a lot of people in the dressing room. I try to find a corner, or go outside and warm up. So, um, I've been really lucky. The injuries I've had, uh, they were before a tour. In fact, once I was running too much and I got sciatica,
Yep.
and that wasn't, I don't know, that wasn't the last 10 years. Luckily, X was doing a semi-acoustic tour. We were trying that out, and my left leg was totally almost numb. I couldn't. I'm a fast walker. I remember we flew into Phoenix, and I was walking slower than the oldest people, coming off the airplane. It was really painful, but it was my hi-hat leg, and after about six weeks I got through it, and I was able to play the bass drum, and we were playing quieter. And I mean, I feel for people who have back problems, because that was the first time I really had an inkling of what it could be like. You can't sleep on a soft surface. I would be sleeping on the floor on hotels,
Do you think
and
it was the running? Because I have had sciatica, and I was a hardcore runner. I would even run, 5 to 10 miles before the show, and then another after the show, just because I didn't I didn't like to socialize. But it was always like, "Where's Burke?" Every band would be worried, like, "I hate this. He just always shows up 5 minutes before we start to play."
yeah,
But it's what it also is. It's sitting in a van for 5 hours every day before you get to the show. That develops sciatica too.
I could do it. I mean, it was never bad enough that I'll get stiff, but I'm unlucky. But I know it was for money. I can visualize the moment, because I live about a mile and a half from the mountains in the San Fernando Valley,
Yep.
and there are fire roads, and I mean, this is another thing if you're talking about health, and
Mhm.
don't overdo it. If and I knew that because I was an experienced runner, and I'd been running since I was in junior high school. Don't think you feel, after running a week, don't, you start to feel like you're Superman, and take a day off. Don't go out and I'm going to run 8 miles. I feel so good. And that's what I did. And I knew better. I ran too far, you know, and I think I felt it the next day, I just know that was,
That runner's high, it's hard to come back from. You just want to keep going. Because do you get creative, or do you get emotional when you hit that zone?
oh, it's great.
Yeah.
It's,
Nothing like
there's nothing like it. I mean, I used to run, I never ran a marathon. I wasn't that good. I wasn't that ambitious, but I would run, 8 or 10 miles. And I was like, I remember I have memories of being in Europe, and after a show, I would run in the rain, and you get lost. I remember being in Amsterdam and just running and just running, going, hope I can find the hotel, you know,
I've been lost. I've had to call the stage manager guy, like, I don't know where I am. You got to pick me up. There's like half an hour before we're supposed to play.
oh God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fun though. I mean, that's cool. I like to hear those stories. I thought I was the only one.
Yeah, I think it's a drummer thing. Not every drummer is like that, but it definitely is a
Where do you
quality.
put this energy? I
Exactly.
hate downtime. It's
Exactly.
between the sound check and the show. It's like I just go nuts.
Yeah, I mean, I've actually gotten pretty good at being in a van and just sitting there. I'm good at reading books, and
Yeah.
I'm good at listening to music, and I've, maybe because as I got older, but yeah, but and I don't at this age, I don't exercise before a show because I've had a couple cases where my leg just wouldn't work. In fact, that was quite a while ago. It's probably 30 years ago, but I exercised too much, and we had to do 2 sets on New Year's, and the second, no, it was the end of the first set. No, second set. My foot after the second song, my foot was like a club. I couldn't play double beats. It was, I started having everything.
Yeah.
And then I went, oh God, I'm not going to be able to make it, through New Year's. And then it, loosened up after about 3 or 4 songs, but I was really worried. So, but the other thing I had was I had tennis elbow, and that was maybe 10 years ago. It was another Pearl Jam took us on tour to Europe, and I hurt my left arm, and it was about a month before we were going to go to Europe, and I did physical therapy, and they put they gave me a brace, and I was able to get through the shows. Luckily, as an opener, you don't play very long, so
How long did that last?
Pardon?
The whole tour, did that last?
It did, and I put the brace on. I actually started to feel a little better by the tour. It just hurt a little bit, and I babied it. So really, I've been really lucky, overall, that I haven't had a lot of injuries. Well, I'm trying to think if there was one more, but I think after. No, I know I did one more where I forget. I was running again. Yeah, it was another one of those tours where I was running at the hotel, and suddenly I get to the gig, and my it hurt like hell with my right foot hitting the bass drum, and it hurt like hell. And I just told John Doe, I said, we can't do this song and this song. The couple songs that really take a lot. And I said, just give it a week and I'll be okay. And I limped around and I survived. But I'd say overall, I've been really lucky, and part of it's, I guess, it's luck, and part of it is if you practice and you work out and you keep active, it helps.
Yeah, I think it's probably this is my 21st episode, and I think only one guy was like, nope, never had anything, I've never warmed up, I'm in perfect health, nothing. And I was like, you are the magic man. I don't know how you do it, because
Buddy Rich or no.
Actually, Jerry from King's X, he's just like, I just roll out of bed and play drums, man. I don't even. I was like,
like that. Who knows? It's probably true, and I don't know. I hear about people. They say I never practice, and they just sound great.
Yeah.
I've never been that kind of person. I'm not. I work really hard to just be where I am. Not
Well, this last record, the playing sounds amazing. Everyone sounds like it's really fun to listen to, actually. I don't want to say I was surprised, but I've considered myself somewhat of a songwriter. I've put out records where I play all the instruments, and it's gotten radio attention on Seattle and stuff like that. And so I always think from a songwriter's point of view. I don't really think from a drummer's point of view. And just the melodies and the harmonies, and everything's like so well constructed. And it's deep, from the start all the way to the end. And then she does the poetry on the last track, which is pretty cool.
That was inspired. Yeah, that was
why. I think I don't know why I didn't ask this at the top. Why are you not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
People ask me that. It's not something I think about a lot. Like people say, you should win a Grammy. I've never been the type of person who, necessarily wanted it. I think of it. I just don't know. I think of it as a pragmatic thing. People say, oh, if they put you in that, you get better gigs, that you get attention. But the answer is, I don't know. I've had people say, you're going to get a Grammy from this, and I go, this record, and I go, oh, I didn't think of that. That'd be really cool. But I have to say, both the Grammy Museum and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they've sponsored, not sponsored. Well, they've had us play shows, and they've had us do when we were in Cleveland. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame had us do a little presentation, and they've been courting us, or we've been courting them. So they're aware of us, and they were very nice to us. So but there are people who vote for it, and I understand. There's also.
Is there a complaint box?
There what?
Is there like a virtual complaint box for X fans? I think it's long overdue.
Well, you can't please everyone. I mean, everyone has their favorite band, and everyone thinks they deserve it. And it's there are a lot of musicians, and every year they say so and so, this famous artist should. I can't believe they haven't been inducted, and which is true. There's so much talent. So I mean, if it happened, I would be very honored, and it'd be great. But yeah, like I said, it's not something I dream about, but it's
hurry up. I mean, it's not even about. It's just about recognition. It's about influence to me. The foundations of music going forward. And it's like if you're not, it's like decades overdue. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not even. I love new wave and I loved 90s pop and stuff like that. I'm not just like punk rock all the time, But I understand what a heavy influence you had for so many bands going forward. So it's a shame. Hopefully soon.
It's fine. I mean, like I said, I don't think for instance, a couple of years ago, the Grammy Museum in LA, gave us an exhibition of, 5 or 6 months, a full floor of a presentation, I mean, it was absolutely amazing, it was beautifully done. We loaned them posters and things from our clothes, and it's an honor to do that. Of course, that the other side of me, the part of me that is the working musician goes, you can't get rid of us that quickly. Once you're put in a museum, you feel like you're
yeah.
You're and so that's the other side to it. It's in a way it's good not to be memorialized because we're not dead yet, but it was really cool when they were closing it down. I went to visit one of the last times, and there was a sign out front on the sidewalk, advertising the shows, and on one side there was X, see their stuff, and the other side was John Coltrane, and I'm going, wow, I'm on the same sign, like they're advertising my band for this museum and John Coltrane on the other, and it was really cool, and so there you go.
That's great. I mean, well deserved. Do you have? You can find like a tour of that anywhere on YouTube? Have you found? Did anyone document that?
Well, I think they took it to. There was a museum in Oklahoma City, and it went there for a month or two. So, it was a short tour, and then I know because I got all the stuff back. I got my posters framed. That was cool. I said, can we keep the frames? We get because I had almost all the posters that for some reason I saved all of them from the old days, and so now I have them around the house. So, maybe in the future, but not right now.
Cool. You are still playing outside of X in a couple other projects during all this COVID stuff. Is it Two Heads and then Dead Rock West?
Yeah, Dead Rock West. I've been playing with them for I don't know, over 10, 12 years, and I've done at least 3 records with them. They're really Frank and Cindy, the singers, are really they sing beautiful harmonies, and we did an Everly Brothers tribute, and I think it was before all the. I think it came out after all of. There were a bunch of famous tributes that came out. We recorded it a long time ago, but didn't have the money to release it. But they sang those harmonies like like Don and Phil. They just did an amazing job. So yeah, they're a really good band. And Two Heads is a band I play in with my friend John Mormon. And Victor Krummenacher, who plays with Camper Van Beethoven and Cracker, and then Willie Aaron. Willie Aaron is the keyboardist, and we haven't released anything. We played a few shows, and we were destined. We were scheduled to play a show on March 14th in San Francisco, and it was right when the COVID thing happened. It was everyone just said we don't want to fly, we don't want to, they were closing down the Bay Area. But so we haven't released the record. It's hard to release an instrumental record, but I think it's really good. And I'm working on stuff online with John Mormon. We're writing material. And I'm actually, I'd never done it before, but I'm getting my studio together. I finally bought a computer with a, you know,
Pro Tools or something.
yeah, I do the, you know, I mic up the drums with 4 mics, and it sounds really good. And so I'm learning, you know, how to send things, and, you know, I mean, because I was tried to ignore that.
Yeah.
Even though I you know.
Now's the time.
Yeah, now's the time. So, and I probably played with some other bands, but oh, I know. I did a record with the Divine Horseman, Chris D. We did a Flesh Eaters. I don't know if you know the Flesh Eaters. We did a tour with the Flesh Eaters. That was his band, and his band after the Flesh Eaters in the mid '80s was the Divine Horseman. They put out, I don't know, 3 or 4 albums, and so after we did the Flesh Eaters album and tour, where I played marimba and vibes, Christy said, "Hey, do you want to play drums on my record?" So we recorded it at the end of last year, and there's some. I think they released something on Bandcamp, one song, but you know, same thing. It's no one wants to release an album if you're really not a big band during the pandemic, but they're working on a video. So yeah, and I'm sure I could think of more and more bands. I used to play, you know, in 10
like you like your downtime very much.
Exactly the same thing you're talking about. Hyperactive drummers, you know, when you're home, you know, you want to play, you know, you want to be active, you want to make money.
Was just meditate, you know, you don't have to 100% all the time, you know, and I was like, it's hard to do that.
No, you can't do it.
No.
Take a day off maybe and watch cartoons, but that's it. Day
offs are hard because now I'm trying to walk extra long. I'm trying to walk extra hills. I'm trying to do, you know, and she thinks I'm breaking myself down, you know, and I'm trying to build stuff up and take a day off.
It's a fine balance. It's a fine balance. And you know, I mean, you know, anyone could feel that. As you get older, you feel that too. Like you go, okay, if you stop exercising, you'll get totally out of shape, and then you can't do anything. If you exercise too much, you'll hurt yourself, and you won't be able to exercise. So you have to find that window, you know, because you want to push it a little bit.
Yeah,
but you don't.
Not just a little bit.
Yeah, you have to know. That's the thing. It takes, I guess, trial and error or wisdom, or just push it a little bit, not too much, and you know, so. Yeah.
I started drinking water, you know, like 3 months ago for the first time in my life. And it's like, wow, this is making a difference. Now it's like, you know, just so much water every day. And she's like, slow down.
Yeah.
Water poisoning.
I drink water too, but there's hops in it. No, I don't. I drink a little. I don't drink a lot. I don't drink very much. I have a beer and I like it. But yeah, water, tea, coffee.
Hydrate the drummer. You know what? This is really cool. Like you covered pretty much everything without even me like initiating the bullet points. So I really appreciate your time, and I wanted to remind everyone to go to your Bandcamp. Alphabet Land's the new record. I love it, and I don't listen to anything anymore. I listen to sports talk. Like nothing really inspires me these days. But I was so glad that record came out and that all you guys are in the studio again. I just can't. You know, when is this thing going to be over so you can start touring?
I hope so too, you know, but I think it's like, I mean, I agree. It's a good record. No, I think, you know, it's a classic X record, and in that, you know, we weren't trying to be trendy. We were just playing the way we play live. Mm-hmm. Some people have said it sounds like the early records, you know, because Billy, you know, left the band in 1985. So we just tried to play like we would on stage, and we recorded it live. You know, we put the vocals on later, but we went into a studio and just played without a click. You know, I mean, everyone wants to play.
Break was it? It was in the goodbye year. There's a break that lasts quite a while, and then you click everyone back in.
Yeah, and it was, in fact, there was even talk about. I think I think John said, "We'll take the click out," and Billy said, "No, leave it in because it sounds like we're playing live." And you know, and I really did that. You know. And that was and it was actually Exene's idea to do that stop, to the hold. Like, and she said it'd be great to do it, and then John and I went into the studio, into the tracking room and said, well, where would it work? We tried it here and there, and yeah, I think it was a really, really great idea. So anyway, yeah, we played it live. So even if it takes a year or two to come back, it'll just be. I hope it's sooner, but it'll. I think the songs will work in our set, as and it will. Yeah.
Yeah, it fits right in.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you so much. Here I go on and on about promoting a record, and thank you. But it was a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, you too. If anything in Seattle, you just let me know.
Okay.
Yeah, and then hopefully we'll be passing through LA sometime next year.
Yeah, I look forward to that when we have live music.
Jogging, that's my dream. I just want to jog again.
You'll get there. You seem disciplined and determined.
Determined, not disciplined.
Okay, well, determination.
Yeah.
I mean, you got it's an important thing.
Yeah.
Determination is important. I wish you well, and it was a pleasure talking to you.
I appreciate it. Thanks again.
Okay, you're quite welcome. Take care.